Welcome back to the Armenian Museum of America. I'm Gary Lynn Sananian, and I'm here to share another object from our collection with you. This is a Palestine Museum cabinet, collected from the Holy Land. And these were created in order to share objects from the Holy Land with people in America, people especially involved in Bible studies. This whole project started in the 1860s with an American named Robert Morris, who was going to the Holy Land, and he decided to get subscribers in order to support him. And each subscriber would pay $10 and to support his mission in the Holy Land. And when he came back, he promised he would give them objects from the Holy Land. So he sent many objects to America while he was in Palestine, and he came back to America in 1868. He began giving these objects to his supporters, and unfortunately his warehouse with all the objects was in Chicago. And in 1871, they had the Great Fire in Chicago, which wiped out 17,000 buildings, including his warehouse. A few years later, an Armenian named Paul Iskiyan had come over. He was a Protestant missionary student, and he was in Springfield, Mass. At the Protestant School for Christian Workers. And he began a similar project, but on a more modest scale. And he would create these little cabinet boxes, and each of these boxes would contain samples of things from the Holy Land. These would be plants, seeds, minerals, kohol, other objects that are related to the Middle East and also are mentioned in the Bible. And so when the whole idea of it was you could buy these little kits here, and you would have them for your Sunday school. And so you're talking about Pharaoh, and the Pharaoh used a particular thing. You could show the object that Pharaoh used because you had an example in these little kits here. And this is one of the smallest sample boxes. This has 21 different samples in it, including a little bit of sackcloth here. The larger kits had 24 objects or 27 objects. And he was marketing these in the 1880s, late 1880s. And for about 10 years, he had this business going where he was these cabinets. And these are term cabinet, which is another term for museum. They used to use it, a cabinet of curiosities. And so these would be very instrumental for teaching in the schools. And you'd have a little booklet that came with the box. And in the booklet, when it talks about plants or seeds, it would show you examples of the plant, explanation of it, so that the school teacher at the Bible school could explain to his students more details about this particular thing there. So it was very useful. He was also involved with many other projects. After he stopped this business, in 1895, he began a new business called Sultan's Madzoon. This was fermented yogurt, fermented milk, which they marketed as a product for health. It was a medicine. And Sultan's Madzoon was considered basically a drug, medical. And it was advertised in medical journals. You could find advertisements for Sultan's Madzoon as a food which helps promote digestion and increases long life. He dropped this business in 1906, and began another business. And the new business was in Brooklyn, New York. And it was the Eastern Carpet Renovating Company. And renovation is another word for rug cleaning. But Paul Iskiyan was very typical of the generation of Armenians that came before the 1896 massacres. The Armenians that came earlier were mostly young men, very ambitious, educated. They usually were trained in Protestant schools, so they all spoke English. So they had the language skills when they came to America to survive here. And these men were ambitious. They would start kinds of businesses. They wanted to make their mark. It was very, very different than after 1894-96. After that, you had the families coming. And these families are men bringing their wives and children, and they're looking for stability, a place to raise their family. And so they were much more typical of American immigration at that time period. But the young men before that were very ambitious entrepreneurs. And American society has benefited greatly from projects that these young men did in America. They contributed a lot to our society today. The Armenian Museum is here to share our stories, our history, our culture with you. We thank you for joining us. We thank Michelle Collegian for sponsoring this series. We hope you'll come again, and until then, stay safe.